I love this title. George Orwell was sadistic, misogynistic, homophobic, and sometimes violent. I love the fact that the sometimes violent is added as a by the way. I mean, it's not the primary reason of concern. Like, you can be sometimes violent, but misogynistic and homophobic. Oh, that is beyond the pale, Tovarish. Why are they attacking, though? I mean, the man is dead, right? And I don't even know if many of his fans are even aware of his private life, nor do they care. Like, for instance, I don't care if George Orwell was wiping his ass after taking a shit with his right hand or his left. It doesn't matter. That's not why George Orwell is a famous person. He is famous for his writings. And his writings are not a book on how to live your life or how to behave as a good, decent, moral person that's not misogynistic and homophobic. It is supposed to be a warning, not an instruction manual. But given the fact that almost everything in the book is starting to come to pass in many Western nations, I suppose the journalists from the Telegraph need to write an article here why George Orwell was a bad person and you should distance yourself from his writings. Apparently, as you can see, they're repeating this, that he was sadistic, misogynistic, homophobic, sometimes violent man who wrote women out of his story, according to a biographer of his wife. Okay, so third-party information. Also, what I find interesting, and this is what makes leftists feel uncomfortable, especially on Twitter, if you ask them this question, right? So we look at these character traits: sadistic, misogynistic, and homophobic, and sometimes violent. Do you know who else had these exact character traits? Che Guevara. Che Guevara. Do you guys know who Che Guevara is? You probably don't know him, but if you see him, you'll recognize him because he is on the t-shirts of many left-leaning academics, many left-leaning thinkers, and surprisingly, many LGBTQT plus IA activists. Like, I have seen them. They're activism for LGBT rights, and they're rocking the Che Guevara t-shirt. Behind every Che Guevara t-shirt, a pair of non-binary boobies. No, unironically, like I seen this lady, like she was like. But anyway, right? Why is that interesting? Go to Wikipedia. Go to the Che Guevara page, and search for LGBT. Actually, you know what? Even worse. Search for the gamer word. He used the gamer word. The one with F. And I'm not talking about fuck. He used it. Now, you may say, in what context? Well, the context was that he received a journalist at his embassy. And he noticed that the journalist was carrying a book known by an openly gay poet. And when Che Guevara saw the book, he picked it up and say, "Why do you bring the book from this in my embassy?" And he threw it at the wall. It's on Wikipedia. You can look into that, right? So those are Che Guevara opinions on homophobia. We can go into sadism based on his earlier life. Sometimes violent, I would say that is an understatement. But interestingly enough, he never gets criticized. Isn't that interesting? So I guess if George Orwell wanted this article to go away, he should travel back in time and become a communist or a socialist. And all of a sudden, these character traits, they become virtues. They never get mentioned again. It's actually a good thing that Che Guevara was a little bit violent sometimes. Okay, well, a little bit sadistic. Well, it makes sense. I mean, it's the time of the day. This is how left-leaning people operate. And it's interesting that normies are not aware of. Like, why would you make an article about George Orwell? Like, what is your purpose? What is your game? Because you're a journalist, right? Like, why would you write something like this? No one is trying to emulate George Orwell based on his private life. Like, no one even cares about his private life. And if we were to decide that people who weren't perfect, people who are misogynistic, sadistic, homophobic, sometimes violent, should have their contributions to humanity removed, we would probably lose more than 3/4 of the entire human knowledge. I mean, going back to antiquity, all the way through the medieval time, through the Renaissance, all the way up to our era, almost everyone had one of these character traits, right? So what? Like, are we supposed to not benefit from their knowledge? Like, if, let's say, the inventor of penicillin happened to be misogynistic. I don't know, but, like, I'm pretty sure he most likely doesn't stand up to the standards of the Telegraph and other journals. So if he fails in the purity test, do we stop using penicillin and all the inventions that came after that just because, like, he wasn't a good, decent man? So apparently, according to this biographer, which produced the story of the wife of Orwell, highlighting the contributions that O'Shaughnessy made to his work, including helping him to write Animal Farm. Decency is such a core Orwellian value. He writes about it. It's a quality of the prose in 1984 that is going to save us. He wanted to be decent, to be seen as decent, and which he meant a man of integrity. Also, he used that word referred to being heterosexual. He was enormously homophobic, but deeply attracted to men, and I think not particularly interested in women's sexuality. Why the fuck would I ever care about George Orwell's sexual life? Do you care, chat? Like, is that when you read Animal Farm, are you like, okay, but I want to know how this author was fucking? I'm really curious. What sexual positions? Which partners did he prefer? The age range? This is the most ridiculous thing that I have ever heard. Like, why would it even matter? It's like he wanted to be seen as a decent... He's dead. I don't care. Whether he was decent or indecent, it doesn't reflect on his writings. That's not why people read Animal Farm. He's a very complicated man. He is sadistic, misogynistic, homophobic, and sometimes violent. How many times will they repeat this accusation? And also brilliant. Oh, well, I'm glad that you remember that. He desperately wanted to be decent. It takes someone who is those things to go deep inside themselves and pull that vision out. No, because he wasn't writing a novel about a serial killer or a sadistic, homophobic person. He was writing a novel about government. So, like, it wasn't that he was a bad man and therefore government bad. No, he was actually looking at history, at trends, noticing what the people at this time were advocating for. He even wrote a book that criticized the Nazis. They don't really mention that often. But anyway, right, so that's why people are reading Orwell. They're not reading Orwell because he was a good, decent person. He wasn't Jesus Christ. You read Jesus Christ to try to emulate Jesus, but it's a different type of author. So anyway, a decent everyman underdog, the ordinary person that he might have wanted to be, would not have had those visions. Okay, that's your opinion. But I feel it's almost naive of us to want our writing heroes to be decent, upstanding,